Yes, blessed love, my brothers and sisters, in this blessed time. And this is your host, Joseph Israel. You are tuned in to the Kingdom Road Radio Show right here in the 7th month, Tishri, also known as Etanim, on the eve, the Erev of Chag HaSukkot, the festival of Sukkot, one of the festivals of Yahweh outlined in the Torah for Israel to keep. That has many pictures and foreshadows of events to come, of events, and we're in the midst of fulfillment. And we're going to get into some of that today. And for some of you, maybe this is your first Sukkot. Maybe it's your first time hearing of it. There's different people tuning in on different levels. But it's also known as the Festival of Tabernacles in many translations, or the Feast of Booths. And we're going to be looking at some different scriptures pertaining to this festival. And I'm going to be sharing some thoughts on it. But first, we're going to start with a couple Psalms. We're going to read Psalms 111 and Psalms 112. Hallelujah! I will praise Yahweh with my whole heart, in the assembly of the upright and in the congregation. The works of Yahweh are great, sought out of all them that have pleasure therein. His work is honorable and majestic, and his righteousness endures forever. He has made his wonderful works to be remembered. Yahweh is gracious and full of compassion. He has given meat unto them that fear him, and he will ever be mindful of his covenant. He has showed his people the power of his works, that he may give them the heritage of the heathen, or the nations. The works of his hands are verity and judgment, and all his commandments are sure. They stand fast forever and ever, and are done in truth and uprightness. He sent redemption unto his people. He has commanded his covenant forever. Holy and reverend is his name. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments. His praise endures forever. Amen. So we notice here that the commandments, doing the commandments, all his commandments are sure. He commanded his covenant. And this is all beautiful things. We love the works of the Almighty. All right, Psalms 112. Hallelujah. Blessed is the man that fears Yahweh, that delights greatly in his commandments. His seed shall be mighty upon the earth, and the generation of the upright shall be blessed. Wealth and riches shall be in his house, and his righteousness endures forever. Unto the upright there arises light and darkness. He is gracious and full of compassion and righteous. A good man shows favor and lends. He will guide his affairs with discretion. Surely he shall not be moved forever. The righteous shall be in everlasting remembrance. He shall not be afraid of evil tidings. His heart is fixed, trusting in Yahweh. His heart is established. He shall not be afraid until he sees his desire upon his enemies. He has dispersed. He has given to the poor. His righteousness endures forever. His horn shall be exalted with honor. The wicked shall see it and be grieved. He shall gnash his teeth and melt away. The desire of the wicked shall perish. Amen. Give thanks and praise. Unto the upright there rises light in the darkness. And there's another scripture in Isaiah that says the people that dwell in the land overshadowed by death have seen the great light. Those who dwell in darkness have seen the light. And so the whole thing is that we live in a time when the light has begun to shine. People are returning to the covenant. They're seeking the agreement. They're seeking to study the scriptures. They're seeking to understand the holy purpose of the Almighty One, his eternal purpose that was set from the beginning, and we all are a part of it, and we have our role to play. His works are perfect, his commandments are sure, and so when we base our life around these things, we're guaranteed to be building on a strong foundation, and be guaranteed to, you know what, if the Most High says it, it's a guarantee. You know it's promised. So there's nothing to fear, my brothers and sisters. So this is the Kingdom Road Radio Show, and part of that light shining for the upright ones is that there is an understanding growing in the earth, and I'm a witness to it, and someone who has been blessed to have understood some of these things, and that's why I'm here today to share this with you. And I know there's so many other people out there gathering and rallying, and the Spirit is bringing them together. And it's all a part of the fulfillment of prophecy. And this is because Israel, the nation of Israel, is being restored. Yahweh's people. These are the people that he made his covenant with. These are the people that he gave his statutes to, his judgments, his commandments, his Torah, his teachings. He didn't deal with any other nations. Psalms 147 teaches us that. He didn't tell any other nation to start. He didn't give them their laws, not America, not any other nation. He didn't tell them to write the Constitution. He didn't deal with any of those people. These men have all started their own governments, and man has chose to guide himself, and the so-called strong and the rich and the powerful have pushed their way to the top by pushing other people down, and that's how you have the upper class and the lower class. And we have a lot of injustice in this world today. People are crying out, and there's wars and famines and all of these things going on. Well, this is all part of it, because man has to learn the result of his own doing, of his own mismanagement, of his own lack of guidance and lack of understanding and lack of wisdom. Man doesn't have the wisdom to guide his own course. Man is full of folly, all mankind. So the only way for us humans that are created in the Most High's image to actually live a right life, to find a government that will bring peace and happiness to all people of goodwill on this earth, is to seek the kingdom of the Almighty. He's the only rightful governor, and he has given actually the kingdom to the Mashiach to run also underneath him. The Mashiach is Yahshua, his son, who came and gave his life for us and redeemed us from Adam's sin. And now the redemption, the kippur, the atonement, has been covered, it's been paid, the ransom has been paid, a perfect life for a perfect life. And Yahshua has been raised to the highest position in the heavens underneath his Father. We must always know that. The Son is not as great as the Father. And the Almighty, Yahweh, is even Yahshua's God. He's Yahshua's Elohim. Yahshua prays to his Father. He prayed to his Father while he was on earth. He taught us how to pray and what to pray for. He said, "Our Father who is in heaven, may your name be sanctified and holy. Your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven." So he told us to pray for this kingdom, this government, that the will of the Almighty will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that shows you two parts of this kingdom. And his kingdom, that's what it's about. The Kingdom World radio show is about publishing the good news of Yahweh's kingdom for all tongues, tribes, and people, to hear this. Anywhere through the World Wide Web, we're using this tool, and the blessed Messianic Lamb Radio, so thankful to have this place here for us to meet and greet, and just full of spirit here at this Erev Sukkot. And so our gathering and our understanding and the light growing for the people is a definite fulfillment of prophecy. The fact that people are returning to Yahweh and calling upon his true name, that was taken from us by religion. Most Bibles and everything have the name removed, the name of the Father and the Son. People don't even know the name, but we found it out. The Comforter, the Holy Spirit has brought this truth back into the earth, and now there's nowhere to run, because the Father's name is known, and hidden within his name is also his purpose. And his purpose is that his name means whatsoever he purposes, that he will accomplish. That's one, he will be what he will be. I am that I am. My purpose will stand. And his purpose is to wipe every tear off every cheek, to put an end to suffering, and for mankind at the same time. This is the most beautiful thing, for it to be the choice of the human race. He doesn't force us to follow him. It becomes our choice, our own free will offering, our free choice. We are free moral agents. We have the ability to choose right and wrong, who to worship, how to live our life. And when we choose to serve our Father, our own choice, he doesn't force us, but you look at the world around you and you see what's happened when man has chose every other option except to follow the commandments and the Almighty. And we know that the fear of Yahweh is the beginning of wisdom, and a great understanding of all that keep his commandments And for the upright, light shines in darkness. And here it comes, the understanding. When you're in a room that is dark and someone turns on the light, you can see. People that have the ability to see, they have wisdom. Wisdom, you can actually apply the knowledge that you have and get some results. And again, this is the fulfillment of prophecy, spoken of by the great prophet Isaiah in one of many prophecies concerning this, what is actually taking place in these days. It says in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2, in the last days, which in the Hebrew is ba'acharit hayamim, okay? So that means in the last days, in the last portion, the furthest portion of time, the last portion of this time that we live in. The mountain of Yahweh's house shall stand firm above the mountains and tower above the hills, and all nations shall gaze on it with joy, or come to it with joy. That was the JPS translation. The word of Yahweh translation, which is based on the authorized King James, it says, it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of Yahweh's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. So all nations shall gaze on it with joy, and all nations shall flow to it. Either way, the people are going to be coming. What happens is, the house of the Almighty, His organization, His kingdom is exalted, where people can actually see it. The kingdom message is advertised. People begin to hear about this new faith in the earth, which is actually the old faith, but it's new now because it was lost, for the most part. So people get an interest, and they want to come, and they want to come learn about this kingdom. Verse 3, and many people shall go and say, come ye, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Jacob, and He will teach us of His ways, and we will walk in His paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. So we see here is a restoration of what once was, but in the greater fulfillment, it's going to be much greater than it once was. But what it's showing us here is that if you study the Torah, you realize that the only place you were allowed to do sacrifices and offerings was at the tabernacle or the temple. Well, when it was finally came to its resting place, this was in Jerusalem. Jerusalem means the foundation of peace. Okay, now, this is the capital city. This is where Israel will go worship, and this is where the teachings will come out. We find in the scriptures that there's a higher Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem. And this is actually where the throne is set, so to speak. This is where the Messiah reigns from. This is the holy city that the Apostle Paul was speaking of. This is the New Jerusalem, okay? And this is actually where the word of Yahweh comes from. But the people on the earth, they say, come, let us go into Yahweh's kingdom. Let's go to the mountain. So it's as if they were hiking up to this great mountain. But it's a spiritual ascent. When you go to the mountain, you get to a higher heights. You're climbing into a higher region of your mind, and you're seeking the higher things. So as if you're climbing the mount in Jerusalem to go offer your thanksgiving, this is what people are doing even spiritually. And they're returning to the Most High. And it says that we will walk in His paths, that He will teach us of His ways, and we will walk in His paths. What He has outlined, the place, the rightful place for man to walk. We don't want to go to the right. We don't want to go to the left. We want to stay right in the middle, right where the Most High wants us. So that's what actually what I'm bringing out here is that this is the people's own desire. It's not that someone's telling them they have to do this. This is their own desire from their own heart. And they're seeking this kingdom. We're seeking this kingdom. We're a part of this great awakening. Isaiah 49 says this. Verse 9. That thou mayest say to the prisoner, Go forth. To them that are in darkness, show yourselves. They that feed in the ways and the pastors shall be in all the high places. So what we have here is the prisoners, or those that are locked in a mental prison, those that have been lied to and deceived. It's a mental prison. And spiritually, people have been locked away from the truth, locked in the dungeons. Them that are in darkness, show yourself, come out into the light. So they will come and they will feed. They will get the truth. Verse 10, they shall not hunger nor thirst, neither shall the heat of the sun smite them. For he that has mercy on them shall lead them. Even by the springs of water shall he guide them. Okay, so again, the time comes for the people to return. We're witnessing that in these days, and the Almighty is leading them. It's an invisible force. You can't look out and see, oh, that man is the leader. No, because the Almighty is gathering his people. And this has to do with the angels are gathering under the Almighty's command, under his Son's command. So this is a beautiful, wonderful teaching and gathering. This has begun in the highest region from the Almighty, sent to his Son, sent through the faithful angels, and the repercussions are felt on this earth. And we're witnessing the rise of Yahweh's people in these last days. And in fact, it says in verse 11 of Isaiah 49, and I will make all my mountains a way, and my highway shall be exalted. Okay, so this is the kingdom road. The people are going to come out of the system. The people are going to come out of illusions, lies, deception. They're going to return to the Holy Land. But this is more of a mental preparation, first of all. When the Israelites were taken out of Egypt, the Egypt wasn't taken out of them. Many of them, in fact, almost all of them, except for the great prophet Joshua and Caleb, didn't make it into the promised land. Instead, because of disobedience, they wandered and they fell in the wilderness after 40 years, or over a course of 40 years. The blessings were right there for them, but why didn't they get it? They lacked the faith. But they had this, you could take them out of Egypt, but you couldn't take the Egypt out of them. So it's the same way today. If you take the people out of this world, you give them a paradise earth, they do it all over again. But only Israel. Israel means those that strive for Yahweh's blessings. These are Yahweh's people. They will gain the understanding. My sheep will hear my voice, the good shepherd said, and they will come. He said he's the good shepherd. He gave his life for the sheep. So we hear when he speaks, we know. So this happens to us all, and that's why we're even here today. So this is the beginning. What I'm saying here, this is the beginning of the kingdom call. The Jerusalem call, the Zion call, the call of Yahweh's people from all over the earth. Remember, Israel is those that strive for his blessings. And Israel are those that he's going to use to actually advertise his kingdom. But first, Israel has to get gathered together. So this is a beautiful thing. And the mountain of Yahweh's house has begun to rise above all other mountains. But it's going to rise further still. And there's going to be even a greater gathering than there is going on right now today. There's going to be millions, hundreds of millions of people gathered. Just wait. Like the sands of the seashore. You can't count. And in the end, it's going to be the most beautiful thing you've ever seen in your whole life, and everybody will be so blessed. So that's what the beautiful thing is. In these last days, he's going to gather his people, and it's going to be 100% success. And when his people are gathered and we pass through the judgment, those of us that stand on the other side will have made it. So that's the whole thing. This nation that he's gathering, it's got to be a success, because the kingdom is going to be placed into their hands, where it says, "Blessed are the meek; they will inherit the earth." Something that you inherit becomes yours. The heavens are your ways. The Psalms teach us, but the earth he has given to the children of men. So when the meek inherit the earth, the teachable, the humble, these are his people that he gathers out of the world, the system of things, and gives them the earth to manage. And they will, because the fear of your ways, the beginning of wisdom, and they uphold his commandments, great understanding of those that do his commandments. His commandments are broad beyond measure. These ones began to apply the teachings and do it correctly. Now this is under the guidance of Zion, of the heavenly Jerusalem. And so this is back to Isaiah chapter 2. The beginning of it is the people's desire to want to learn the Almighty's ways. They want to walk in his paths. And that's what we have going on today. That's why people are gathering all over the earth right now. There's sukkots being put up. Many of you might possibly be in your sukkah as you're listening to this live. And if you are, shalom, my sukkah is built outside this room here, but I'm not able to be in it because it's not yet the time. The sun hasn't set. I'm still looking at the sunshine outside, but my wife and my beautiful wife and children are putting the final touches on the sukkah, so it'll be a surprise even what it looks like when I get out there. But so this is like the last thing I'm doing basically before I get in the sukkah, is having this wonderful radio show with you all. And so anyways, it's our desire, and we're taking it one step at a time. We're asking the Father to teach us his ways, that we will walk in his paths. I don't want to walk in my path, and I'm sure none of us want to walk on our own path, because we know there's a way that seems right unto man, but the end thereof leads to death and destruction. It's folly. So only when we say, let thy will be done, your will, O Father, be done, then will it be right. Because the Torah comes from Zion. The teachings comes from Zion. And that's the place where the King of Kings, Yahshua the Messiah, is enthroned. He rules out of Zion. He is enthroned in Zion. And the word of your way from Jerusalem. And if you read in Revelations 21, this city, the new Jerusalem, the heavenly Jerusalem, the restored Jerusalem is in the heavens, and it is actually the bride of the Messiah. Okay, so this city has begun to call her children, and this is when they do get the children, and the people are what we're seeing today. There's going to be even greater steps taken, and that's what verse 4 has to do with in Isaiah chapter 2. It says, and he shall judge among the nations, okay, and shall rebuke many people. And they shall beat their swords in the plowshares and their spears in the pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Now, so what we have here is that this government, actually, and the authority that comes from Yahweh, the righteous ruling and the teachings that comes from Yahweh, and how he sets up his kingdom, there will be a rebuke, there will be a judgment between the nations. However, when that does take place, the people will learn, and the people that are following his ways and walking in his paths, they will no longer learn war anymore. They won't study war. They won't ever know war again, the Jewish Publications translation says. Okay, nation shall not take up sword against nation ever again. Now, that is because in the near future, the prophecies teach us that there is going to be the worst war that there ever has been and ever will be and there never will be anything like that ever again. It's the war that's going to end all wars. Matthew 24 brings this out. Matthew 24, verse 21. For then shall be a great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, nor shall ever be, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, but for the elect's sake those days shall be shortened. So it's going to be so terrible as if it could even wipe out everything on the earth, but it won't. Because he said, blessed are the meek, they will inherit the earth, and the earth abides forever. So, but it's that terrible. There will never be a tribulation like this ever again. And it's also is in harmony with the prophet Daniel. He's actually quoting from Daniel there. the prophet Daniel teaches us basically the same thing. Chapter 12, verse 1 of Daniel. And at that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which stands up for the children of thy people, Daniel's people. And there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was, since there was a nation, even to that time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, every one that shall be found written in the book. So this is all about the waking up, and the people that will be delivered will make the right choice. They will walk in his paths, and they will find deliverance. They will find Yeshua. They will find salvation. They will find the guidance and the blessings of Yahshua, the Messiah. And this is Yahweh's son. So, but the people will not make war anymore. But what happens, just like I just was reading, but we can actually read it in Zechariah 14, which the chapter of Zechariah 14 is actually one of the Sukkah studies that it's a traditional reading during the festival of Sukkot. And one of the things it says here in verse 13, and it shall come to pass in that day, and this is the same last day's time, that a great tumult from your ways shall be among them. So this is when he judges among the nations. And they shall lay hold every one on the hand of his neighbor, and his hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. Okay? So when every man turns on one another, you can imagine if the whole world if every neighbor and every nation and everybody fought at the exact same time, this is gonna really be a terrible thing. And but those who follow the Prince of Peace, like we talked about a few weeks ago, we would never harm our neighbor. We would never lift up a hand against someone like that. And it says that those that are walking in the Almighty's paths are going to never learn war again. It's because they will follow the commandments and also witness what happens when mankind doesn't follow the commandments of the living Elohim, and see the world go down in an all-out war as they remove themselves from the scene completely. This will actually also be their own choice. You know, the judgment of the Almighty is so that he doesn't force anyone to do anything. And this is how beautiful and just and wise and perfect it really is. See, most people think the Almighty one day is going to come, he's going to end everything bad, he's going to establish everything's good, and all we're going to have to do is exist. Well, how is he going to establish, if we still have negative thoughts and negative emotions and all these things inside of ourselves? And I'm not saying you have to be perfect right now. None of us are perfect. But if we don't get a control of ourselves, if we don't strive to improve ourselves mentally, physically, emotionally, you know, all of these spiritually, then what are we going to do with all the blessings? We would end up corrupting them once again. So it's all about refining ourselves. That's why the Messiah says, pull out the log out of your own eye before you go and correct someone else. Because you already have a big log blocking your vision and you don't have the true vision. So unless any of us become perfect, then we can really help someone. And you can always help someone. But we should not judge and condemn one another, because as soon as we do, our own folly is exposed, you know. So, but the nations of this world, their folly is exposed. They've invested in all this ammunition, nuclear bombs and warheads and all of these things. Russia, America, Israel, the political nation of Israel, which is not the true nation of Israel, because Israel doesn't trust in weapons and political allies and all of these things to support themselves. The true Israel of Yahweh puts all their faith and hope in Yahweh. They keep his commandments. They love him with all their heart. And they're a nation set apart and different from all these other nations. And this is the true Israel of Yahweh. So anyways, his people shall not learn war anymore. And actually in verse 5 of Isaiah chapter 2, it says, O house of Jacob, come ye, let us walk in the light of your way. So remember, early on in this radio show today, we read in the Psalms 112 that for the upright, the light shines in darkness. Light is sown for the upright in heart. So, O house of Jacob, come let us walk in the light of Yahweh. So come let us walk. Now that's another word possibly I've talked about in other shows, but the idea of walking in the light is a lot different than just absorbing the light. When someone walks in the light, they are progressive in the light. When you're walking, you're going somewhere. So let us walk in his paths. Let us walk in his light. This is the Kingdom Road radio show, and this is your host, Joseph Israel, and we are talking about moving in the truth. The truth is ever growing. It's never stagnant. The analogy of water. If you have a beautiful flowing spring, but if you get stopped up and get stagnant, that's when bacteria begins to grow. The same thing what happens with people when they stop exercising. Their body gets unhealthy. The disease and bacteria start to grow, and they get sick and weak. And so the same way we have to be spiritually active, just like we have to be physically active. And our spiritual activity, we're motivated by our love for the Almighty. We want to keep His commandments, and we got to walk in His light. And as His light, we actually know that the Proverbs teach us. Proverbs 4:18 says, "The path of the just is like light at dawn that shines more and more unto the perfect day." So at the sunrise, if you get up early enough, like I do, you go outside and you barely see a little light. It's dark, you still see stars, but you see a little light beginning to rise up. But it's basically dark. Most people are probably still asleep. But if you get up early, and that's kind of like all the people today waking up to this truth. It's like someone waking up before the sunrise or right at the sunrise, before it gets light, and right when you can tell it's starting to happen. So all these Israelites waking up, wanting to keep the commandments, wanting to call on the true name, to keep the feast and to understand the prophecies, to call themselves Israelites, to seek the Messiah and understand the Hebrew roots of the faith. All these things. It's like you're waking up before the true, overwhelming light hits the earth. One day, no one's going to argue with you about this stuff. One day, everybody's going to know. But you woke up early. And so you're saying, let us walk in His paths. Let Him teach us His ways. Let us go into the mountain of His way. So you see the mountain, you see the light shining early in the morning, but it's going to get brighter and brighter into the perfect day. So as we continue to walk, and let us be progressive, that means just like you woke up and you realized that maybe you were deceived, maybe if you were going to church or whatever religions you were a part of, that you didn't have the full truth and that you needed more truth, so you made a progressive step. And you began to seek and understand that these things that the world's telling you is good is not always good, and you began to find the truth for yourself. And remember, the Messiah said the truth will set you free. So hopefully this has been a beautiful path for you, or if you're just getting started, it definitely is a beautiful path. But it's not an easy road because, there's many challenges in this world. This world isn't really doesn't make it easy on people striving to live for the truth. But however, it's easy because if you love the Almighty, it's all worth it. You don't miss anything. But coming to understand about His festivals has so many deep layers of implications and what it does for us. We can't even register, honestly. But but by understanding, by building your own sukkah with your family and putting His commandments first, you're teaching the children, you're walking in His paths. And what I'm trying to get to here is that, a lot of times people, they've made some great progressive steps and they begin to get stagnant again. They begin to feel like they have all the truth. They don't need to look anymore. But what I'm telling you is the Almighty's light is progressive, and it's going to be very progressive. So if you notice, this Isaiah, from how I'm reading it, it's the people began to get the truth. They begin to desire the truth. They get the truth. The teachings are coming from Zion. The kingdom in heaven has been restored. That's what's going on now. Now the will is going to be, the message is reaching the earth. The people are responding. There's Israelites all over the earth. They're wanting to keep the covenant. They're wanting to walk in your ways' paths. Soon he's going to judge among the nations and rebuke many people. And but the people that want righteousness will turn everything that was bad in this world into something useful. They will, if it was a weapon, they will make it into a garden tool. That's what it's saying. Turn their swords into pruning hooks, into plowshares, spears into pruning hooks. The nation will not lift up sword against nation anymore, because now under the great son of King David, Yahshua the Messiah, there's not going to be any more war. Then at that point, it still says, "Come, let us walk in the light, O house of Jacob." Now, obviously, that is an invitation beforehand for those that want to walk in his ways and be taught his ways and walk in his paths. We have to walk in his light. But even after the deliverance, even after we're in the kingdom, we still got to walk in the light, because there's still going to be a lot more to learn. And we're going to always have to be progressive throughout eternity and be open-minded to what the Almighty is going to have in store for us. Because eyes haven't seen, ears haven't heard of the blessing in store for those that love him. Okay. Now, let's get into some stuff with the Sukkah. All right, turn to Deuteronomy chapter 16. Or Devarim, more correctly, honestly. All right. Verse 13 of Devarim, or Deuteronomy 16, verse 13. After the ingathering from your threshing floor and your vat, you shall hold a feast of booths, or Chag HaSukkot, for 7 days. You shall rejoice in your festival with your son and your daughter, your male and female servant, the Levite, the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow in your communities. You shall hold a festival to Yahweh your Elohim for 7 days, in the place that Yahweh your Elohim will choose. For Yahweh your Elohim will bless all your crops and all your undertakings, and you shall have nothing but joy. So, yeah. So that will get anybody excited about keeping this thing. So if you live in a farming community or farming area, wherever you are, this even makes more sense. Like where I'm living, for the past 2 weeks, they've been harvesting grapes. Just seeing the grapes, huge trucks of grapes coming down the road all the time. You go around certain corners and all you smell is wine being made. So I've been thinking of the scripture in Joel where it says the mountains drip with new wine. I mean, it's amazing. It's going to be so amazing in this kingdom. But right now I have so many fresh figs. They're so ripe that I had to take most of them. I had 10 pounds. And I had to take most of them and make jelly, and I actually made this raw jelly with just honey and figs, pureed it, and with a little lemon, and it's amazing. So it'll probably last a few weeks in the fridge or something. It's not a preserve though. But anyways, all I'm saying is there's figs, there's grapes, there's pomegranates, there's apples, the olives are about to come in. It's the harvest time. So that the bounty of the year, I love that the festival has to do with the harvest. Now, when you consider the harvest, we also know that if you read like Matthew 13, it talks about the last days being a harvest time. So also the 7th month and the time of harvest and all of these things has to do with the last times, the latter portion of times. We have there's so many pictures and foreshadows, but I think anybody can see that. But for an Israelite, this is a most joyous occasion. So, we just came through the time of atonement, Yom Kippur, and for me it's a joyous occasion too, because I know that my sins have been forgiven and are atoned for. Doesn't mean I'm allowed to just continue sinning, but it lets me know that even though I am imperfect and I strive to do my best, I do fall short. But there is, the Almighty will never turn his back on me, and there's Yahshua the Messiah who is open the way for us all to be forgiven, as Aaron will go in that once a year and sprinkle the blood on the altar. Yahshua did it once for all as he entered the heavens with his perfect life that he gave up on this earth and presented it, but in the true Holy of Holies in front of his Father in heaven. Now, so you shall rejoice. You shall hold a feast of Sukkah for 7 days, and you shall rejoice in your festival. So, we're getting ready to celebrate and really have a good time. So this is not a worldly thing to celebrate and have a festival and rejoice. I mean, as an artist, I play music festivals, and they're nothing compared to Sukkot. But I can't imagine when there's, the whole earth is keeping the festival of Sukkah at the same time, what it's going to be like. It's the ultimate festival. And with your son and your daughter, okay. Now, your children, their family, this actually teaches the children so much. And, my family, I always give a Bible study every Sabbath, and people come over and all of these things. And sometimes the Bible studies, especially the young children, they might not get all the intellectual understanding and stuff, but with these festivals, even a young child, they get to taste the food, they get to see you dance and celebrate and sing songs, and they see the fun and the preparation, and they see their mom and how she feels so good, and they see their dad, and they see their uncle, their aunt, or the people that in their community, their spiritual community, they see how everybody talks about it. Many people go out and have these big camping festivals and stuff. I mean, it's a really great thing. So we can know that this is teaching them a real deep thing. I wasn't raised keeping these festivals, but I can only imagine. And it's all about keeping the joy and keeping it centered around worshiping the Father. But he wants it to be a good time. And with your male and female servant, now, obviously, in those days, it was a totally different system. But with your male and female, with people that work for you, if you're an employer, and you have people, you invite, it's time to have guests and provide for everybody. Everybody come together. And this is important. The Levite was the one that, helped you with your worship and your offering. And so you make sure to include them, obviously. And they weren't actually allowed to have a regular job because there is a full-time work to do all the duties that the Levites had to do within the tabernacle or temple. The stranger, that's someone that's not even an Israelite, but actually they haven't fully, and it's actually going to get even more deep. There's deeper pictures into what the stranger is, but the first the nation of Israel is going to be gathered out of all tongues, tribes, and nations, and then the strangers are going to be the people, in short, that are going to come and join Israel right before the final war, right before the final end, and cleave to the house of Israel, and they're going to want to know the ways of the Most High, and they'll learn it from Israel, and they're going to keep the festival of Sukkah with Israel. And but the Sukkah is also is a protected place, and so when you enter the Sukkah, you're like entering into the protection of the Almighty, his protection, his guidance. And it also says to hold this festival with the fatherless, the orphans, those that don't have a family, you bring them in. The widows, she lost her husband, a woman, or I guess even a man. Men, anyone that's lonely, no one should be lonely in this time. And in all your communities, you shall hold a festival for Yahweh your Elohim 7 days in the place that Yahweh will choose for your Elohim. For Yahweh your Elohim will bless you in all your crops and all your undertakings, and you shall have nothing but joy. So in the place that Yahweh will choose, now that was actually Jerusalem in the ancient times. It's where he chose. So, but not everybody needs to go to Jerusalem now, because first of all, it's not a restored city over there, and second of all, the true restored Jerusalem, the true New Jerusalem is in the heavens. So again, we take that spiritual walk up the mountain, and we worship the Almighty through the Kohen HaGadol, the high priest, Yahshua the Messiah. He's the one that offers our burnt sacrifices for us. And we set up our sukkah around him and around his Jerusalem. And then we have actually gone to the place where the Most High chose. And that's how we are worshiping, and people around the world are keeping Sukkot. And you'll be blessed in all your undertakings. It's a promise. See, it's a promise. It's a guarantee, you know. And not necessarily blessed in worldly things, but you'll be blessed in all your undertakings. The Most High has got you in his hands, and you will have nothing but joy. So when we enter in to the sukkah this evening, or if you're already in it, may you have nothing but joy. May you be filled with peace and blessings, and knowing that you're some of the people, that we are some of the people that are have woken up, that we see the kingdom on the rise. We see the need for the Almighty's will to be done on this earth. We desire it. We want to walk in his paths. We've been guided to understand about these festivals, and there's so much to learn about these festivals. But that he wants us to have a good time. He wants us to celebrate with our families, to be loving and kind to one another. I mean, it's just so amazing. And it continues on here. 3 times a year, you're supposed to keep festivals. On the Feast of Unleavened Bread, Pesach, Matzah. On the Feast of Weeks, Shavuot, or Pentecost. And on the Feast of Booths, the Feast of Sukkot. All your males shall appear before Yahweh, your Elohim, in the place that he will choose. They will not appear before Yahweh empty-handed. So this is that everybody has something to bring. So when you come to the sukkah, at Sukkot, you bring something. Now, this doesn't mean you have to bring a bag of grapes or, some grape juice or something. I mean, obviously, it's nice to bring an offering of something that people can use, or a loaf of bread or whatever. But what it's talking about here, from how I see it, is that each and every one has invested in their own spiritual garden. You've planted, and now's the time for a yearly harvest. And you're going to show up at the Sukkot with something to offer, something you've learned, something the Almighty has done for you, your prayers that have been answered, something is on your heart, so because you've been doing spiritual work all year, you have a spiritual harvest, and you don't show up empty-handed. The Almighty has blessed you, and each with his own gift, according to the blessing that Yahweh, your Elohim, has bestowed upon you. So these are the gifts of the Spirit, and the gifts that you have, and he has given to you. This is your own personal connection, excuse me. Need a little water there. So let's go to Zechariah 14 again, speaking of the very last days. And this shows us that even after the judgment day, that people will still be keeping the festival of Sukkot. And Zechariah 14, verse 16. Excuse me, I'm going to take a little drink of water. Okay. All who survive of all the nations that came up against Jerusalem to fight shall make pilgrimages each year and bow low to the King Yahweh of hosts, and to observe the feast of Sukkot. Chag, it says, it's really beautiful here. In the Hebrew it says to observe, that actually is the word of velachog. So that actually is actually the same word that is actually festival, but it also means to celebrate. So velachog is actually to observe or to celebrate et, and it says et, aleph tav, et, which is actually saying what are they going to observe? They're going to observe Chag HaSukkot. So they're going to observe the festival of Sukkot. That's what they're going to observe. That's what they're going to celebrate. So all the people that survive are going to celebrate, observe, rejoice, and praise Yahweh of hosts, the King, Malek, the King, Yahweh of hosts. Because at this point, his kingdom has come, and his will is being done, and his will is that the people keep the feast of Sukkot. Now, it's going to be deep. We're going to continue to walk in the light. We're going to get more understanding about these things. We're going to do it in a way that pleases him. We're going to ask him to write his Torah on our hearts. We're going to keep moving forward as his people. We're going to enter a land where there's no more war, no more sorrow, no more sickness, no more death. You'll be blessed in all your undertakings. No one will show up empty-handed. Everybody will have a gift from the Almighty. Everyone that strives for his blessings will be blessed. And he intends to bless you. And he sent his son Yahshua that you might have life, that you might have abundant life. And that each and every one has their role to play, and each and every one has a spiritual gift and something to offer. And it will be a part of that striving of each and every one of us individually that makes it such a beautiful paradise earth to live in. So just take a moment and reflect upon these beautiful things. And I'm going to get ready to enter the Sukkah. I'm so excited, and I really thank everybody for tuning in today. And I'm very thankful for Messianic Lamb Radio and for everybody that works at the station and all the other hosts and everybody that's a part of it. For having me be a part of it is a real blessing. And I'm really excited to see what's going on the earth today. And I'm full of hope, and it's a lifestyle of hope and overcoming all obstacles that are being thrown at us spiritually, physically, mentally. We're going to overcome these things. We're going to, and so when we enter the Sukkah, though, let's just meditate on that there's no problems, there's no war. Think about the kingdom and think about what it's going to be like. And we trust in the Most High. We put our trust in him, and we enter into his protection under his Sukkah, under his canopy. And this will be such a blessing. And no more disobedience, only righteousness. And there's so many things to talk about. But, the Almighty has made a covenant with his people, and it's going to cover the earth. Now, when the Messiah, couple of things to end on here. When the Messiah was born, there was a promise. The angels sang, glory in the highest unto Elohim, and on earth peace among goodwill. So when is that going to happen? Only in his kingdom. Only once there is the full establishment of the kingdom of Yahweh, that this will vindicate his name, and only will in his kingdom will there be on earth peace among men of goodwill. Now, he tells us in the prophet Hosea, chapter 2, verse 18, and in that day will I make a covenant for them with the beasts of the field, and with the fowls of heaven, and with the creeping things of the ground, and I will break the bow and the sword, and the battles out of the earth. I will make them to lie down safely. So basically, these are the most beautiful things you could ever imagine. No more wars. Man and animals getting back together. And this is the promise. It actually turned to Isaiah 14:7 that speaks about after the great tribulation and after all the strife that mankind has gone through and has put themselves through. And once we truly learn the Almighty's ways and abandon this wicked system, we find out that what the condition will be under Yahweh's righteous rule is that Isaiah 14 verse 7, the whole earth is at rest and is quiet, and they break forth into singing. And my brothers and sisters, let's just continue to rise up and do what is right, and to love our neighbor as we love ourselves. And so many beautiful things, my brothers and sisters. Have a blessed festival, Chag Sameach, pure joy as you enter into the Sukkah, and think about all the people that are doing around the world, and know that I'm sending my love and prayers for everybody, and we're all hearing the kingdom call, and we're seeing the kingdom rise. And so may we walk in the Almighty's paths. May He teach us His ways, the Torah from Zion, the law from Jerusalem, the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. And, this is the lifestyle of hope, the message of peace, Shalom Aleichem, and enter the feast with joy. And I love you all so much. Yahweh be with you, and I will talk to you next week at the same time on the Kingdom Road Radio. We will continue walking in the light. All right, 7 days of blessings. We're entering Chag Sameach.
He will lead, we must follow. This is reality, yes I know. When you lead, the blessings follow. While we trotting on the kingdom road, kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The light of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road. Tell me, are you ready? Cross over Jordan. Are you ready to meet the promised land? Wisdom is crying, knowledge sings. Famine of Yahweh in the land, kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The light of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road. He will lead, we must follow. This is reality, yes I know. Where He leads, blessings follow. That's why we trotting on His kingdom road, kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The light of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road. Kingdom road. We always in the sun, kingdom road. The Lamb of Zion, kingdom road. Redemption time has come, kingdom road.
Baruch haba b'shem Yahuwah. This is Revealing the Word. Today we are going to take a journey together and discover the hidden word of Yahuwah. So put on your broad-brimmed hats and get ready to excavate the word with us, because we Shema Elohim with you. Shalom. This is your host, Jessica Arianis of HaKo Kalam Ministries, and my special co-host, Eric Bissell. In this episode of Revealing the Word, we are going to discuss the word Shema as well as the word Shamir.
So this word Shema is the first concept that humans, Adam and Hava, were ever given. This word Shema literally simply is translated here. It's a very famous word. It's perhaps the most famous word in all of Scripture, in that the Jews, basically of today, have this saying, which they, from what I understand, they say once a day, 3 or 5 times a day, or this is the phrase they want on their lips as they're dying. Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. It's from Deuteronomy 6, I believe. Anyway, it's translated, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." But it's actually saying Shema, which isn't exactly here. It includes here, but it's more than here. And then it says Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. And my take on it, that cannot be translated, "The Lord our God is one Lord." I disagree with that translation, but I'm mentioning it just because that's what people will probably hear. Normally, that's written as Hashem or Adonai or the Lord, one God. This word Echad, we'll discuss that later. Does it mean a singularity of one, or does that mean that everything he says is the same thing? Two different matters. We can discuss that later. But this word Shema, another time I've heard this translated as listen, listen, Israel. And so you could say, well, if you say the word Shema, does it mean, okay, hear or listen, take heed, pay attention now? There's more to it than that. But the other reason why it's so famous, even though that the Jews give it such a highest regard, is perhaps the most important verse in the Bible. Perhaps Yeshua, when he was asked, what's the most important commandment? This is the verse that he quotes. He says, Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad. And the second he said was like to it, that you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So the fact that Yeshua reiterated this verse of Shema means that this action of Shema is perhaps the most noteworthy primary commandment we were given. And then this other word similar to it, shomer, Adam and Chava, I'll explain that in a minute. They were told to shomer the garden. The word shomer is spelled shin, mem, resh, and it means watch, keep, guard, look well to, observe, protect, or even filter or remove the dregs, like if you were removing sediment out of something. The word Shema is shin, mem, ayin. The commonality between shin, mem, resh and shin, mem, ayin is the word spelled shin, mem, which is the word for name, which I believe we discussed in another show. It means name, fame, renown, reputation. And then there's the letter ayin in one word and the letter resh. Well, the letter ayin literally is an eye, an eyeball, and it means to comprehend, consider, look well to, balance exactly, pay close attention. Whereas the letter resh is a head, and it means something of great significance or to be exalted, honored. It's also the pinnacle. It's also the foundation. If you look at the meaning of the word resh, aleph, shin, Rosh. Rosh Chodesh, for example, some people consider to be the beginning of the month, and some people consider it to be the middle of the month, whereas one would be the sliver and the other one the full moon. It's like it's literally kind of both.
So for those of you who have been following along with us, you will recall from last episode, we were discussing the origin of language, in which we both agree that before you can understand a structural overview of language, or any language for that matter, we first have to understand how language communicate. And then we took you to the origin of communication, which is Yahuwah himself. And we showed you how in Genesis, as Yahuwah was creating the Tolda, or the genesis of things, or the genealogy of creation, where in fact it was created through the Amar, or through his speaking, his communication. So then we want to also understand, if Yahuwah communicates, then how exactly do we receive the information? And then what do we do with that information? How is it then conveyed in our life? I believe this is quintessential to our faith, because Yeshua himself is the Word revealed. He's the Word made flesh. So the word was somehow conveyed through a vessel or through a entity, which in this case would be the species of man. The word was communicated, and then that word was expressed perfectly without any error, devoid of nothing, and it was communicated perfectly through the man Yahushua, and the word was made flesh, or the word was revealed. So we too want to understand, how does Yahuwah communicate, and then how do we receive that information and then have it expressed or conveyed in our lives by faith. So that's why Eric brought up that word Shema. And as he did, I do want to interject here and say that the word Shema specifically means hear and obey, which is the most common description of this word. However, as Eric is showing you, it can mean a few more things and have more weight attached to it. Where in fact, I want to show you that Eric said, Yahushua claimed that the most important commandment was to hear, O Israel, Yahuwah, your Elohim Echad, right?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then he said, and there's another one that's very similar. It's very much like it. And it is to love Elohim, obviously, as a priority, and then to love your neighbor with the same priority. Now, that shows me right there that to hear and obey is an expression of love. It's an expression of devotion. It's an expression of fidelity. And if you really understand this word Shema, even in the Strongs, it's 8088. And it's what the prophets would do. The prophets would Shema Yahuwah, their Elohim. And they would hear the word, and that word was somehow expressed, and it was brought forth. And we were looking up 3 different words of a prophet, and we looked up, I think it was the word Nabi, right, where we showed is the seed in the house. We also looked up that word Hoseh.
How is it spelled?
Chet Zayin He.
Chet Zayin He would be chazah,
Yes.
which would be where we would get in English probably the word hazy, Hazy, because the het is the 8th letter, like our letter H, and then the Zion is actually the 7th letter, but it's where we get our Z sound. And then the hey at the end would be a ha. So chazah is where we would get hazy, hazed.
Hazah. Well,
Which is we see something kind of blurry. So whether it's blurry or it's something hard to see, because it's kind of hazy, but the Navi, the prophet, is the one who can see through the haze to see clearly and give this message, you might say, that other people can't see. That's the prophet's job description.
Right. And again, that word Nabi, which is actually, it defines the position of one who is a mouthpiece. A Nabi wouldn't completely understand what they are receiving, what information is coming through, but they become a spokesperson or a mouthpiece, and they are subjugated to the message or the messenger or the one that is giving the message. So they would simply take that information and convey it. They may not understand everything that is working together, however, where in fact a Haze and a Roe, which are the 2 different offices of a prophet we spoke of last week, a Haze and a Roe would actually have visions. So they wouldn't necessarily hear the word as much as they would see the word, and they would get visionary perspectives or aspects of the experience. So if Yahuwah was relaying information to them, then they would receive a vision, and their perspective would be the aspect. Go ahead.
But again, as we discussed the other day, this notion of, in some of the minor prophets, the books in the Tanakh, it starts off saying, the word of Elohim came to, or the word of Yahweh came to. It's like, well, did they actually get a vision where you saw physical objects with your physical eye, or is it your mind's eye, or is it a conceptual seeing?
Right.
So, for example, there was this one day where I just had the hunch to look at the alphabet. I didn't even know why or what that meant. It was just kind of had this hunch to look at the alphabet. And I was busy for it took me 6 months before I had a few moments. I thought, oh, I'm going to sit down and look at the alphabet. I didn't know why, but I was just going to look at the alphabet. And I sat there to look at it, and all of a sudden I saw this message in the arrangement of the letters of the alphabet. And it was so obvious, I thought, well, everybody knows this. I didn't know it, but I thought everybody who knows anything about Hebrew must know this because it was so blatantly clear. Now, I didn't see a vision of objects or people moving or angels or whatever. Different people get different kind of visions. I didn't see anything like that, but it was this conceptual understanding that was just clearly right there. Is that the kind of vision that somebody could have?
Right.
Is that where you can see clearly, though you're not seeing physical objects like that you could take a photograph with a video camera?
Kind of like in Genesis 15:1, where Abram says again that the word of Yahuwah came to Abram in a vision, saying. So right there, I think that's key. That is exactly what the vision comes to do. The word comes to speak or to communicate or to convey, almost like a transponder? Is that the right word?
Sure. So transponder, interestingly enough, the word ponder means to consider and think. The word for goy, gimel vav yod, meaning non-Jew, basically, if you look that up, it just means nation or people. But if you look up the word Haggah, hey gimel hey, it means to navigate. It's a rudder, helm, steering wheel, that which causes to steer. But it also means to ponder, meditate, pronounce, to consider the spelling of words. So this whole idea of like the book of James in the New Testament, where it says your tongue is like this small member, like the rudder on a ship, which steers this great big ship with this little tiny rudder. So is your tongue. So is pondering spelling of words for steering and navigating. The whole thing is moved by this little tiny rudder. It's the same word, Haggah. So I personally regard the word goy, gimel vav yod, because the suffix ending of a hey or a vav yod does the same thing. The root of it is the gimel. So the same way that the gimel is that which goes this way and that way, or like a boomerang goes back and forth, or like the camel. So it's the rudder that turns this way and that way, which steers the whole thing. So the way you ponder words steers your entire life.
That's beautiful. That makes me think of Psalms 45:1, where there is a maschil of the sons of Korah, and it's a song of love, and it starts off by saying, my heart overflows with a good theme. I address my verses to the melachim, or to the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer. I love that, how he says that his tongue is the pen of a ready writer. Well, I looked up that word transponder, and I must say that this is exactly the word that I would like to use in order to express the form of Yahushua and his sole purpose of coming to communicate to his people. According to Wikipedia, a transponder gathers signals over a range of uplink frequencies and retransmits them on a different set of downlink frequencies to receivers on Earth, often without changing the content of the received signal or signals. Well, that seems to be exactly what the Word in the flesh came to do.
That's right. Yeshua is the great transponder.
Yes, he is. He came to convey frequencies or information that could not otherwise be transmitted. And to those who are here on earth, this is what a transponder does. And it says specifically without changing the content, without changing the information, which is what many scribes have done. They've taken the word of Yahuwah, right? And they try to transliterate it or translate it into a different language with different frequencies, with different syntax, and in such they have changed the content. So we want to know, what is the pure form of communication? Because we believe that language is extremely important in our relationship with the Creator, because he speaks and he reciprocates by hearing as well. We showed you in a few episodes past, that Yahuwah listens. He cares about what we are enduring. It's so important that we take heed to what we are speaking, especially in time of tribulation or through trials. We are either going to speak life or we are going to speak death. So again, I think Eric posed a very good question for us. What is it to receive a vision? Well, in Genesis 15:1, it says that the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham in a vision. So he received a vision of the word of Yahuwah, right? But this word or this vision communicated by saying to Abraham, do not be afraid. I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great. So here there was the word, and the word communicated. It amard. It translated information to Abraham in a vision, and that vision was received. We too want to know, how do we see the word? We want the word to become flesh. We want the word to come alive in us so that we can walk in the power and the authority that was given to the Son. We too want to understand. So back to that word quickly, and then I'll let Eric, I'll let you go on to the word shomer. But just really quick, I want to give you some more information about that word Shema, which again, we said that the basic elements of the word Shema is to hear and obey. And we imagine that to hear and obey is a mark of fidelity or a mark of love, a mark of obedience. He says, if you love me, you will obey me. So to Shema means to love Yahuwah. How do you love him? With all of your heart, with all of your strength, with all of your being, is to obey. But you can't obey something you don't fully comprehend or understand. Now, this word, Shema, carries the connotation of one who completely and fully understands. It's to bring understanding. It is what we would call the spirit of the law. So if something is the letter of the law, it means that it was simply conveyed. It is a natural application. It's instructions that you can follow. You could just simply, if I say, pick up that piece of paper off the floor, and you understood the basic implication of what I am commanding you to do, then you can do that. You can be obedient, and it's your choice. It's of your own volition to do it or not to do it. However, it doesn't mean that you understand why you're picking up the paper, how the paper is picked up, how gravity works. It doesn't mean that you understand everything that is related to that instruction or to that commandment. So Yahushua, I believe, came to bring understanding. He came to bring the fullness of the word that was conveyed through the law and through the prophets. So in Genesis 11:7, Yahuwah says that he is confused the speech of the people at the Tower of Babel so that they could no longer understand each other. This is key. We think that he just simply confused their tongue or split their tongue, where in fact what he did was he made it so that they could no longer understand. Well, in this context, they were prevented from continuing to build up because they no longer had eyes to see, which is vision, or ears to hear, that is discern. And this in return would affect their paradigm and cause confusion, just like it did for Hava, or the woman in the garden. Remember, the serpent communicated to her ear, and it was her eyes that were affected. And I just showed you in Genesis 15:1, where it says the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham in a vision speaking. So it was the eyes and the ears that were affected. So here, if Yahuwah is saying that he confused the speech of the people at the Tower of Babel so they could no longer understand one another and no longer be able to build up, how would that be affected? Because you need eyes to see and ears to hear in order to understand, in order to build, or in order to do something. So it is in my understanding that we as believers can also walk in the same state of confusion today, even in the Hebrew Roots movement and the various movements that are aspiring through the returning of our ancient path. And I believe that there's much confusion because we're simply looking at the text of the word of Yahuwah, and we are imagining that that's all there is to it. Just do A and do B and then do C, and we're good. We're going to get, the effects, which may be the case, but if you're not doing it with understanding, how can you say that you are fully connected to what you're doing? How are you responsible? How can you truly be building up and teaching others if you don't fully understand what you're doing or even why? How is your volition surrendered?
Well, going with this correlation between hearing and seeing, just to show you how close they're related in Hebrew, because in English you might say, well, one has to do with the organ of your eye, the other one the organ of your ear. You might say the sensory perceptors that we were given. But for those of you who have the red dictionary, on page 470 is the word for ayin, which literally is the word for eye. But that same word, depending on the vowel points in the modern, has different meanings. But one of them means to look carefully at, consider, perceive, meditate, deliberate, look carefully at, to think over, balance exactly, weigh carefully, to read, or just what we're doing here, to look up a quotation. So you look up a quotation in the scripture or in the dictionary and you read it. What we're doing right here is literally the word ayin, yod, nun.
Did you say, no, just really quick, did you say that the word balance was also included in that definition?
Yeah, the word for eye means to balance exactly, look carefully, weigh, consider, ponder, which is again very similar word for pondering, transponder, right? The same word ponder, which is the word haggah, which is navigate, steer, consider the phonetics of the spelling of words. But then also, if you go to page 16, the word spelled Aleph,
there you go.
Zayin, Nun.
Aleph, Zayin, Nun. Okay,
is the word for ear.
Right.
Or to give ear.
Ozen.
Listen. And it also means to balance, level, weigh carefully, test, and prove. Now, it also is like if you have two handles on a pot, so you can pick it up balanced. So to handle something or having handles or ears is the same word. And also, if you have a tool belt, like you're a policeman or if you're a contractor and you've got your various tools, that tool belt with weapons or implements is also the same word, Aleph, Zayin, Nun. So to wear something which is balanced on your belt is the same concept.
Well, aren't we to wear the belt of truth?
That's right.
Aren't we to? Okay.
To be gird with the belt of truth. To gird, if you look on page 16, Aleph, Zayin, Resh means to be gird or encompassed, which is something that you wear like a belt. So to have a belt with implements is Aleph, Zayin, Nun, but to be gird is Aleph, Zayin, Resh. And again, if you know the meanings of the letters, now you can say, well, here's 2 3-letter words with one letter being different. So now you ponder the difference of the letter like we're going to do with Shema and Shomer. This is the study of spelling of words, which is Haggah, which there's other words which we see in different scriptures where he talks about breaking something into small pieces and contemplating them. What we're doing here is ironing and Aleph, Zayin, Nun, we're balanced and weighing and carefully looking and considering. So at the same time, we're doing ear and eye because they're both the same exact verb of action.
So let me ask you, in John, I think it's 1 John chapter 4, verse 1, we are told by Yahukanan, it says, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits to see whether they are from Yahuwah, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." So here, that's the word that you mentioned. You said it means to test. Also, to balance or to weigh out, to measure or to test, which if we think about what Havah did not do, she did not test. She did not weigh out. She did not consider I mean, she obviously was given instructions. Her husband obviously took the information that Yahuwah had placed within him innately, giving him instructions, do not eat from that tree. And he obviously was a transponder in such that he was the Word made flesh. He conveyed that information to her. And it was basically the letter of the law. Don't do that. Don't do that, okay? Just don't even go next to it. Don't touch it. Don't look at it. Don't take from that tree. However, we see that that's when I speak of the letter of the law. But did she fully understand? I don't think she fully understood, or else she would not have been deceived. If she was just given instructions, don't do that. Well, that rests on your volition. That says you have the right to choose. Yes or no? You have the right to choose. But I think that when you dig into something and when you exercise your will towards something or bend it towards something, that means that you're making the effort to understand, to connect with, to be echad, to be one with, to either agree or disagree, which is what Amos says, how two can walk together. They become echad, or they walk in echad because they agree. So she did not understand completely, because she says, well, I was told that we can't even touch, we can't reach out for it, we can't even look at it, don't touch it, don't nothing. And so obviously she didn't fully understand, but it seems that she did not test the spirit. She did not test the information that was coming. She didn't balance it out. She didn't weigh it with her eyes or her ears, which again is that word Shema, which means to discern or to rightly divide. It's in Genesis 3:6 that we're speaking of when the woman saw. That's the word ra'ah, which is from that word ro'i. Remember earlier we said that a prophet is a ro'i. Well, she was obviously receiving a vision or some information that was being conveyed to her like a vision. It was information that was coming just like Abraham when the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham speaking. Well, obviously this entity came to her communicating information to her, and it says that she became a ro'i or a ra'ah. She did see a vision. That's that word ra'ah. It means to actually perceive as one who does a vision. So she perceived as she ra'ah as a prophet, one that the tree was good for food. So the vision was like we just read right now in 1 John 4:1, test the spirits, use your ozen, use your ears to balance the information, to weigh it against the word, which is something she did not do. Matter of fact, she gave into the nakash, or she gave into the corruption, the corrupt speech, and she declared by it that it was good for food and that it was pleasant to the eyes, which is really anti-Yahuwah, against Yahuwah, because Yahuwah said, no, it's not. This is not. But she becomes a false prophet like Jezebel in the book of Revelations, and she declares above Yahuwah, it is good. But only Yahuwah was the one. If you go back and you look at the pattern, right, Eric? Yahuwah, Aleph Tav, it was good. Yahuwah, Aleph Tav, it was good. Everything that Yahuwah created, he said it was Tov. That means that it had the potential to produce. And then he said it was very good. And when he says it was very good, that means that it reached its climax or its maximum of potential. So he's saying it was good. That means it has the potential. Then it was very good. That means it reached its potential. So we see here that she's saying, oh, it's good. It has the potential. Well, the potential to do what? To be pleasant to the eyes. You see, the eyes are affected. And she says, a tree, she proclaims, she is acting like Yahuwah. Right here, she's saying, it is Tov. I say it's good. And I say it's pleasant. Very good. Okay? And I say what it is. You said it was no good. I'm saying that it is good. You said that it would lead to death. I say it will lead to wisdom. And then she took from the fruit thereof and did eat. Well, guess what? In the BDB, which is the Brown Driver Brig, this word ra'ah, which is what she did, she ra'ah that the tree was good, she saw, can also be used to mean discernment, which is what we were talking about the word Shema. to discern, to rightly divide between two things, to differentiate. Well, that's exactly what it means here in this definition, the word see. It means to divide, to differentiate, to know the difference. Remember, our vision is connected to our thought process and can have an effect on our mind. So what we see, we believe. It becomes our reality. What we believe becomes our vision or our perspective or our paradigm. So if we have the word in us, rooted in us, and it's becoming flesh, I tell you that the word is life. The word is like a seed that has the pattern to produce after its own kind, while Yahushua claims to be the word in the flesh. He says that the word of Yahuwah is the seed and the seed is the word. So if we have the word residing within us, taking root, being nourished, then the fruition will be to produce after its own kind, which is the righteousness of Yeshua, the Zadik Zerah, the righteous seed of Yahuwah. So we too, if we have the word working in us, its goal is to bring vision and hearing so that we too, like a son, can rightly divide between life and death, good and evil, so that we can build up the house of Yahuwah, so that we can produce life. If the word is working in us, it should change our paradigm. It should shift the world that we once seen or once ra'ah, we once knew through the eyes of Adam, or corruption or deception, which bring us to a place where our eyes are being unveiled and we're no longer deceived by the things of the world, but we are now walking in the light or walking in the truth of his word.
You know, this word that you're talking about, to see, again, for those who have the red dictionary, it's on page 600, spelled Resh Aleph Hey. And if we just think that she saw that the tree was good, well, that's, she applied her physical eyeballs onto the tree and said, hey, it has a certain color and a certain shape, and I find it pleasing.
Like the letter of the law, right?
Yeah, but see, this word to see, Resh Aleph Hey, you said also means to discern. Let me read a few other definitions that it has.
Okay.
To look at, behold, perceive, conceived, understood, considered, observed, regarded, to choose or approve of, to prefer. It also means to appear to be, or to be shown something, or to be put on exhibition. So now in Exodus, when they were at Mount Sinai, it said they saw the sound of the shofar. So you think, now how do you see the sound? Now some people think, well, maybe the sound of the shofar took on some visual aspect. But if this word simply means to put on exhibition so that it became perceptible, it was allowed to be seen, allowed to be perceived, then there wasn't necessarily a physical, visible attribute as much as they heard the sound, they perceived the sound. The sound of the shofar was put on exhibition. If you go to a museum and see exhibits, it's the same concept. So what I'm trying to do here is to say that the word roa, Resh Aleph Hey, means more than visible seeing. It has to do with comprehending, and was if Yahweh allows himself to be seen, he uses this word here where he allows himself to be perceived, perceptible, puts in some manner that you could look at that and go, oh, there it is. So, for example, when I saw the connection of the letters of the alphabet to actually be a message where each letter was related to each other, I was allowed to see that. I perceived that, but I didn't see something in particular in my mind's eye. I did. Interestingly enough, that exact same word is vulture. Why would the vulture be Resh Aleph Hey? Well, a vulture is a guy who flies up above looking down and he sees with an overview. It's also the word for lungs. So part of the study of Hebrew is to look at this and say, now why in the world would the word for lungs be the same as to put on exhibition? And the benefit of the etymological dictionary that Ernest Klein made here is that he shows you the Aramaic word, Arabic word, raya, Akkadian, irtu, which has to do with the word for chest. Well, that's your your upper torso where your lungs are. So now we have a relationship between the upper part of your body, which is on display, and then it gets into other words you'll notice having to do with, this gets into numerous different aspects. If you look at Resh Aleph Vav Yod, worthy, fit, suitable, that's the same root word. So if you have a picture of, say, King Kong, right, standing up on top of the Empire State Building and pounding his chest, the gorilla, when you pound your chest, you're showing fortitude. Well, that has to do, that's where your lungs are. So this is the way Hebrew works. When something is strong and fit, you pound your chest, well, your lungs are in there, so it's all the same word. But if you're up on high and, now I can see what's going on, like the helicopter view, which you might say the helicopter would be like the vulture of the natural animals, just kind of hanging up there in the air. But Resh Aleph Yod is the word for mirror. It's also the word for appearance or aspect, or appearance or figure. It's also the word for excrement or dung, that which was inside hidden suddenly is outside and made evident. That all these things are the same root word of Resh Aleph or Resh Aleph Hey. So the only way to really understand Hebrew is to look at all these meanings, try to fit them together in your mind. Then you look at synonymous words like the word Hey Gimel Hey, Hagah, and the word for Aleph Zion Nun, and you sit there and say, why are all these words either using the same letters, the same words, same concepts, or used together in the same passage? And then as we sit here and ponder, as our minds wander in wonder, those are the same English consonants as even the word for wind, which is the word for ruach. And then you could say, okay, how do you test the spirit? The word ruach is also spirit. And say, okay, if you can correlate all these different things together and find the common thread where they are echad, well, does that mean they're all the same one? Or does it mean they're the same voice? So when he goes back and says, Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, is he saying that there's only one God, or that he is unified, or that the three are one? Or is he saying, listen, every time you hear a message communicated to you from Yahweh, from Yod He Vav He, it's going to be the same message, not contradictory. Yahweh Echad, the same message. The way to test the spirit is that if you get a vision, gee, is this from God? Is this from Yahweh? Is this from the Holy Spirit? Is this from the Ruach HaKodesh? Is this from Jesus? Is this from Yeshua? Is this from some other sort of whoa, what message is he giving you? Any spirit can stick any label on himself, any name tag at a party. Who is this guy? Is the message Echad with Yud He Wah He?
On that note, let me say something. I really want to point out the fact that you brought up the theophany that was at Mount Sinai, that theophany of hearing, or what was it, seeing the shofar, to see the shofar. Well, there is a preliminary understanding of the physics associated with the shofar. I don't know if you've heard about it, but it's called the blue shift. It's the light or the harmonic overtone series or sympathetic vibrations associated with the shofar. I don't know if you've heard of these terms, but I do want to say that they have done some studies on the sounds of the shofar. And so to say, if we truly understand what it means that they saw the sounds of the shofar, well, to see is a statement referring to the shofar, obviously, or something that's stated when Yahuwah spoke at the receiving of the Torah at Mount Sinai. Again, it says they saw the sound. So, like you said, that question you asked, how is it possible to see the sounds, right? Well, that word they saw relates to two specific words: wisdom, which is chokhmah, and awe, which is yara. Yera, right? To Yera. And so Chokhmah Yera, it means to see with awe or to understand with awe. It means wisdom. And in Proverbs, it means the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom, right? Chokhmah, right? And so there was a discussion. I don't know if you know about this, but you can look it up. There was a discussion with the physicist R.A. Bernstein, Bernstien, who states that the application of the blue shift was brought to his attention as it relates to the sounding of the shofar. But in brief, what he basically says is that the blue shift is a physical principle of light, the most intense light perceived as intense white light. It's actually a blue purplish light, but he says that as it travels through space, it eventually ends up becoming red, which made me think of our blood, how our blood is blue, but when it hits the oxygen, it becomes red, this light, right? And so he says that it ends up becoming red. And he says if you were to look at the continuum of light from the side, you would see every color of the spectrum. He says that this phenomena is likened to the highest light of Yahuwah. And he says that it's from Yahuwah's highest light, or the light of himself, passing through the contraction, which acts like a prism, and thus all the colors of the spectrum, or the spiritual spectrum, are realized. Okay, so he's saying that he's a physicist, and he's saying that when the shofar was being blown, that it was bringing forth this blue shift, or this spectrum of light. And he goes on to conclude that to hear, or he says, this is his words, to see is the highest of physical senses, and it relates to wisdom. As physics proves, light, color have waves or frequencies, okay? Then he goes on to explain about sound. Well, what he ends up saying in this article here is that living in a paradoxical world, he says here there is no paradox when we come to the conclusion that the eyes can see the prism or the light of what is being spoken. He says that this is a inclusion, a true inner inclusion of oneness. He's saying because everything that is being conveyed at once is everything that's being expressed, not just the note C, or that, just hearing the note C. He's saying all of the vibrations and frequencies associated with the note is being conveyed and received at that very moment, and the two become one. So what you were saying, the word being flesh, or the word coming in the form of man, is everything that Yahuwah had to say being conveyed or expressed through bodily form, or through human form. So Yahushua was the light of man. He was the light of Yahuwah being expressed in every form and every spectrum of pure wisdom and beauty. And I don't think we understand fully that this is the expression of Yahushua. This is, he says that he's the image of the invisible qualities of Yahuwah. He is the image of the invisible one. So when they were seeing the shofar, this physicist believes that it was the frequencies or the dimension of every note being hit, that they were actually connecting to the notes. They were actually connecting to the purest form of the shofar as it was being expressed. So we are also to see the word. And if the word is made flesh, then it should also be conveyed to us as light, or as truth that expels darkness, correct?
That's right. Another interesting matter that you have touched on here, I heard it said once that matter, physicality, is essentially crystallized light. And when I say crystallized, it means to be put into what we would call the form of solid or matter, right? So you got like solid, liquid, gas, and plasma, and light you'd probably put into the category of plasma. But matter it's all of the same substance. So as you brought up the description of who is Yahushua, he is so purely the echad, the complete, the total, the on the same page as the word in its purest form, the word as light, the word as sound, the word as object matter manifestation of the word. And then if you say, well, humanity, human beings were actually the pinnacle of creation, the highest form of creation. If you look through the Genesis 1 account, Yahweh started off with what appears to be tohu vebohu. Then he made light and dark, and he made the waters, and then started separating with land, and then brought forth the plants and the animals, and then pulled man, formed man's body, and breathed into him the breath of life, gave him the spark of consciousness, and then he stopped with what he made. So mankind is at the highest form, but man himself, humanity, is also the frequencies of sound and light and the potential for us to be echad with Yahweh. Remember Yeshua's prayer in the garden. He said that he petitioned that we in him would be echad with the Father the same way he was echad with the Father. Now that doesn't mean that he is the Father. That's not what he was saying. If he is echad with the Father, that means he's with the same frequency, the same voice, the same word, the same substance and essence. And he was asking that we would too. That doesn't mean he's asking that we would become the Father. There's this gets into a theological area that maybe this isn't the time and place to deal with it. But what I'm trying to bring up is that humanity, humans, you and me, and each one of us, as we contemplate these words, the objective is to, you might say, synchronize the frequency of the word to be echad with that of the heart of the Father, which is Aleph Tav. And Yeshua himself was the accomplishment of that in its purest form as a person. And he said that we should follow him, be one with him, do it just like him. And that is the ultimate potential of us as humans, which is distinct from any other element of creation. That is our potential realized right there.
Beautiful. It makes me think about countenance. So when the word is being expressed properly in us, when we are taking in the word, we're not just reading the word and saying, oh, okay, in its basic form, we do this and the end result is that, right? Cause and effect, okay? So what we're saying is, look, I don't understand this. And we're not being pretentious, and we're not insubordinate. We're not saying, look, your ways are corrupt and wrong and messed up and I can do better. No, we're not saying that. We're saying, look, I really want to understand you. I want to understand what you want me to understand. You've conveyed this information for a reason. I want to connect with it. I want it to be written in my heart. I want it to become also who I am, because obviously Yahuwah is expressing exactly who he is. He's expressing it in his word form. And I want, if this is written on your heart, this is who you are. Well, I want to know who you are. Why do you do this? Why do you say this? Why is this so? Why was it written this way? Why did you do it this way? I want to know you. I really want to know you. I want you to be written and established. I want to be like you. I want to express who you are in me. I want to lay myself down before you, and I want you to be expressed through my life. I want you to be glorified, right? I want you to receive the glory for the works of your hands, because I am the work of your hands. So if the word is truth, the word is light, and there is no deception in him, then that word, when we take it in and when we wrestle with it, when we say, I'm not going to let go of this word until you bless me, until the word brings a barucha, a blessing into my life, until it conveys life, because I realized that I was once subject to a lie. I was hidden in corruption, and I was obviously subject to sin. So we were subject to sin, and we were in our former man or former nature. Then this word, as we take it in and we shema and shomer, which is what we'll get into shomer in our next episode. But as we take in the word, we realize that the words of Yahuwah Elohim are wisdom. They are light. They are truth. It is wisdom. And we become Yara. We are then full of awe. And this is the respect that he deserves. The awe or the fear of Yahuwah is the beginning of wisdom. So this is that awe, the days of awe, And we take in his word with great admiration, and we say, let your word be made known in me. And it makes me think of Cain, when Cain became wroth with Yahuwah because his offering had not been respected back in Genesis 4:6. And Yahuwah says, why has your countenance fallen? And we know that word countenance basically is the word panim, which means mouth or face, and then fallen, which is the word nephal, okay, which is where we get the word nephilim, okay, Nephilim. And he's saying here, why has your face become Nephilim, or why has your face become nephal? But that word panim, or that word for countenance, is Pei, Nun, Yud, Mem. And it basically means that which turns, or a turning object. That's something that has like a panoramic, it's the only thing I can think of is panorama, like a camera that has aspect ratio, and it can turn from the left to the right. Why has your face, that which perceives or has an aspect, why has your aspect fallen? Well, I just wanted to bring this up, and then we'll get into it next week as we look up the word shomer and we understand a little bit more of what it means to have the word expressed in us. Well, just really quick, I'll leave you with this, Eric, and then you can conclude here. There's another word very closely related to panim, except that this is panin with a nun, sofit at the end. So it's the letter pe, nun, Yud, Nun, Sofit. And guess what that word means? It means a ruby, or a gem that glistens when it's turned. Again, having many aspects, or an aspect ratio. And so when it turns and it receives the spectrum of light, it then responds by glistening, or by shining, or by expressing that light. And it's a prism of light, which is what we were talking about earlier. So this word is very closely related to panim here when he says, why has the countenance fallen? Why is the light? Why are you now dark? Why are you grieved? Why are you so downcast? Put your hope in Yahuwah, right? But he failed to do that, and he gave in to the desires of his heart, which was be angry but sin not. But in this case, he sinned, and he slew his brother. So if you stay tuned with us, we will go into the word shomer next week and break open that word. But remember, what we're saying here is that we are to shema like the prophets of old. We are to hear the word and have that word expressed through us as a form of light or truth that expels darkness. So thank you for joining me, Eric. I had fun as usual. Remember, you can go to Ministries.org and access these podcasts. You can tune in here at Messianic Lamb Radio, and you can also reach Eric at
Paleo Sefer. So my email is paleosfr@gmail.com. SFR would be like Somic Pei Resh, or the English words Sam, Frank, Ralph, SFR. The word Sefer means book, or to cipher, or to connect the dots. The website would be paleosepher.com, but that would be PALEOSEPHER. Paleosepher spelled out. There's a website that has various things on it.
Well, thank you for sojourning with us. We say to you, Zakar, remember the words of Yahushua. And he said unto them, Take nothing for your journey, neither staves, nor scrip, neither bread, nor money, because Yahuwah Elohim Amchom.
Yivarechecha Yahuwah.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Listening to Messianic Land Radio. Who am I to stand before you, King of all creation? For you are my saving grace, ruler of all, King of kings. You are the rock, you are the lamb, you are the King of heaven, the Holy One, my rescuer. You are the one I adore, King of heaven, the only one, my champion. You are the rock, you are the lamb, you are the King of heaven, the only one, my rescuer. You are the one I adore. You are the one I adore. Who am I to stand before you, King of all creation? For you are my saving grace, ruler of all, King of kings. You are the one I adore. You are the one I adore. You are the one I adore.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.